Call this meeting of April 13th, 2022 to order. I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda. Motion and second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. I don't see the pledge, but we're going to do it anyway. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and as is customary, we like to share good things of our school district. My first thought already is you two being great cooks, kind of picking probably the worst week that you could cook outside, but I really want to say that's a great thing that you guys did for our school and staff and everybody, so we appreciate you doing that, so thank you.
Same token, I want to jump in with, to make it able to happen, I'd like to thank the principal sitting in here, because they obviously did a lot of the groundwork within the building, so we did the cooking, but they did a lot of the making it actually able to happen for staff, on the staff side, so I'd like to thank them.
Cool. Anybody else have any good news in the district?
My wife and I went, go ahead. Go ahead, Larry.
I'd just like to say, good job for the play. Went and seen it the other day, and it was very enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife and I went their first play ever, and we got some superstars in that group. I tell you what, they
Really did.
they did an amazing job.
Saturday they found out that Cody Garber qualified to be a state FFA officer for next year. The last time somebody from St. James was 1975.
Wow.
some great things going on in our school district then. All right. Do we have anything back there from patrons? Nope. Okay. Now we're on to the election results. And we need to have an approval of the official election results from April 5th for the counties. So I need a, do we need a motion for that, or it's good, just this, it's election, right? So we just have to,
Don't technically have
nothing,
to.
we're nothing, we're good, okay? So just like to say thank you again to Tina, Justin, and Larry for serving again. We appreciate your hard work and welcome back. So,
Thank
Yep.
you.
now you guys get to take your oath of office. So, where would you like them, Shannon?
Up front, I guess.
Okay.
You want to know.
Raise your right hand. All right, repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of school director
discharge the duties of school director
in and for the St. James R1 School District,
in and for the St. James R1 School District,
County of Phelps, State of Missouri,
County of Phelps, State of Missouri,
to the best of my ability according to law.
to the best of my ability according to law.
Congratulations.
All right, and now we're on to the organization of the board. Mr. Webster, you get to serve as the temporary chairman.
So might I add, this is actually the single best moment since I've been hired. For now, and about reading one paragraph, I truly am the boss. Moving to item C on the agenda, election of the board officers, acting as temporary chairman. I will accept nominations for the office of president of the Board of Education.
I nominate Tim Wilson.
Are there any other nominations? Okay.
Sure.
Tim Wilson has been nominated to serve as president of the Board of Education. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Congratulations, new president. I will now accept nominations for the office of vice president. It's on my part.
Yeah, you're done.
I was having
You're
so
already
much
done.
fun.
That's all you get, bud.
Fun.
You get one line.
Always take away my fun.
Yep.
Shannon said the executive was me.
Uh-huh. All right. I would say it is, I think, for both, isn't it? Yeah.
No, it says note the new
Wilson
president.
takes over.
Yeah.
I think it's that.
It's always been president takes back over.
Read it together, Tim.
Okay.
Do we have any other nominations? Okay, Mr. John Rapp, well, no. You've been nominated to serve as vice president of the Board of Education. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, new vice president.
All right. And so now I'd like to call for nominations for secretary of the board. Okay. I have a nomination for Shannon Parsons. Any other nominations? Okay, I need a second. Second?
Don't need a
Oh,
second.
don't need one, sorry.
This is why Webster was good at
He was
this.
really good. See if it's not laid out in front of me, so. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And then I would like a nomination for treasurer of the board.
Nominate Susan Douglas.
Okay? Any other nominations? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And lastly, the MSBA delegate.
Do you want it, Wilson?
No.
Rap.
Okay, so I have a nomination for John Rapp for our MSBA delegate. Any other nominations? Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Okay. On to presentations. And Dr. Williams?
been meeting to work together as a team, and so we've gone to each building, we've talked in different grade levels, we've talked as vertical teams to really kind of determine what is it that we need as a math resource moving forward in the district. So we have our math proposal put together. This is really so that we could identify a strong vertical scope. Oh, sorry. Thank you. This is so we could really identify a strong vertical scope and sequency that would really provide some consistency in our math program, so that we knew from kindergarten through Algebra 2 what our students were going to be learning. And then we also looked at what would then be applied to the pre-K level. And so this is our presentation and our proposal for our math scope and sequence. Part of that, we needed to look at our math classes and the way that students go through those math classes. So at the middle school level, if you look at this, you'll see that our recommendation is that we have 2 levels of math. First would be 6th grade math, 7th grade math, 8th grade math, which would be most of our students would be in that area. If our students are based on our recommendations and our data, we do plan on having placement assessments to accurately place students into the classes, letting them go into advanced math. And the purpose of this, at 6th grade, then they would do all of 6th grade standards and some of the 7th grade standards. And then in 7th grade, they would do more that pre-algebra, where they would have part of the 7th grade and the 8th grade standards. This allows students to not skip the standards, which are still crucial to building conceptual knowledge. And then at 8th grade, that would be Algebra 1. The difference, and when we talk about MSIP 6, just a little bit, the EOC then would be taken in 8th grade if the students are in that Algebra 1 class, because they would be completing that content area at that time. MSIP 6 is changing so that score will stay at the middle school. Previously, it was held on and then put into the high school. So this doesn't impact the middle school scores in the sense that we're taking the top students and then sending their scores to the high school. At the high school level, we have a couple of different recommendations, and that 8th grade class is really going to kind of be the framework for where they go from that point. So if we have a student who takes the placement test and they are missing some conceptual knowledge that they really need in order to be ready for that algebraic experience, then they would have Algebra 1 at the 9th grade level with a concurrent math lab to really help them go through that information and build their knowledge. Then they would go to an applied geometry class, and then either they could do intermediate algebra or they might go to RTI. So it really kind of depends on their own pathway. For our students who were in 8th grade, the advanced math class, or in the 8th grade math, and maybe they did not develop that content knowledge, or they don't demonstrate that they're proficient on that EOC and they need that Algebra 1 again, then they would drop into Algebra 1, move into geometry, and then Algebra 2 or RTI, and then that last year they could do statistics, college algebra, or RTI. If they are in advanced math, again, they could kind of do some doubling up. They could do Algebra 1, then Algebra 2 and geometry, college algebra, and be able to get to calculus. So we're trying to find pathways for kids to really get as far into mathematics as they want, and it depends on their end career path. You know, our students who are interested in becoming engineers are going to probably want more math than students who are in another career field. Our students who score proficient or advanced on that EOC in the 8th grade, they would drop into geometry, then go to Algebra 2 honors. Then they would go to college algebra and could get on to calculus if they wanted to. I do have, well, I'll go through, and then if you have questions, you can ask me about it. Part of the thing that we looked at too was making sure that our students with special needs, we also think about a track for them. And so if they are in special programs, then this would be more of a self-contained math. We wanted to make sure that we did our self-contained math, that they had intro to algebra, they had Algebra 1, and if they could get to geometry, that's fine, or if they had a pathway to get to RTI. But either way, our students are still responsible for taking that Algebra 1 EOC, so we wanted to make sure that it was in the course of their classes, that they would have that opportunity, and that we make sure that it's not something that we've had these other math classes and then all of a sudden I have to take the Algebra 1 EOC. We want it to be logical and where that content is best presented to them. So this we worked on with the middle school and the high school teachers to develop this scope and sequence for math courses. We looked at several different programs. So this is a compiled math checklist that I just shared with you. And what we did is we looked at Eureka Zern, which is Zern is the digital component of Eureka. We looked at Into Math, which was a 6 through 12, Math Expressions, which was K5, and then Reveal K12. And so we looked at those different components. They did trials. And then every grade level, the teachers had the option to go through and create a criterion sheet, rank it. So this is how that scored out if you wanted to look at it. You can tell that overall, Reveal is the program that teachers selected K-12. And so that is where our proposal is for Reveal. And they looked, the teachers are the ones who developed that criteria. We developed it in a K-12 group. They talked about what they wanted in a program, what our students needed, and that came from them. When we look at Reveal, then I put in the cost proposal for Reveal. You'll notice that this is a 6-year subscription. So this gives us online access for 6 years to the Reveal program. It does provide, the teachers felt like they did need some print access as well, especially with our students who are in kindergarten, first grade, that it's really important to have those pieces as well. And so they did feel like doing the print booklets was very important. We would get those annually for 6 years. They will send them in the spring. We just tell them how many numbers we need. At the and that goes through 7th grade and our 8th grade class. Once we hit Algebra 1, those books are hardcover. And so the difference is we ordered a class set basically because we know that sometimes kids either can't use their technology for one reason or another, or they've left it. So we wanted to make sure that they still had access in the classroom as well. So having just a set. There is professional development already included, but we can purchase more. The other two pieces are add-ons, which our teachers feel very strongly that they would like as well. The math manipulative kits are actually kits that come with all of the manipulative students will need in the math classroom. And that would cover all of our classrooms at the elementary through 5th grade. And then Alex is a program for intense intervention for our students, 6 through 12. But it also is for enrichment, so students can be at different levels. We are still talking through what that would look like in the classroom and the best use of that. But these are the things that the teachers felt very strongly about. So that's, if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them. And
Okay.
So, if it switches to up here where they would get, is that college trig, is that moving them to a semester class instead of a year class? Are they year long now?
it could be. It depends on where they're dual, you know, if they're going to be in dual credit. I mean, there's several factors that they could go through
So
in that
if
pathway.
per se trig goes to a semester class, is it still offered dual credit
Yes,
for
I
the
believe so.
semester?
Mhm.
Because I know it's a year now, so I didn't know if that was. Okay.
We had I think we were talking about this, that to best prepare our middle school students to come to high school, that this plan seems to fit into that mold pretty well, so that they're a little more prepared when they're coming over to the big kids, so.
Yes, and one of the things that we really talked a lot about too was the summer requirement. So this will be the last year that we have the summer requirement for the students who want to move into the next group, and we've already sent and notified those parents that that's going to be the case in order for them to finish up the algebra portion, because at this current time, they were doing 8th grade standards as well. And so we want to make sure that they have the Algebra 1, so they have that strong foundation before they move into the courses at the high school. So this will be the last year for that. They'll take the EOC in summer school, and then the ones who are proficient or advanced can move into the higher math moving into high school.
So just so I understand, is will trig only be offered in a semester, or is it still, could they take a year of trig or a year of college algebra, or will it only become a semester class?
No, I think they could take it, if it's dual credit and it's a year, they could take it as a
Okay.
year. We were trying to figure out, would they take that as
'Cause
a year
college-
long? Would they take it as something that we create and they're not getting dual credit? Obviously, we find the benefit of kids doing dual credit,
Because
but
that much coursework, I think, would be extremely hard to squeeze into a semester.
any other questions?
Anything else? Okay.
What do we spend now on what we have? Like
What do we
nothing?
spend? We have,
It's been a while since we've revisited new
So it's-
resources
Yeah.
within our
So
school
it's-
district.
it's
and
pretty
if you looked at what we're using, and I have Dana here, so she can correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember it was like 4 or 5 pages of resources that we currently use. And so one of our concerns was the consistency, because if I'm using this in, let's say, 3rd grade, and then 4th grade's using something different, and then 7th grade, the vocabulary isn't necessarily the same, the strategies that students are learning. So every year it becomes new learning to connect that vocabulary or connect this instructional strategy. Is that the same that I learned before? And so having consistency will actually help our students develop that understanding in a much better way.
So much easier for everything to be the same.
Okay. Any other questions for Dr. Williams? Okay.
It is a large investment that we're asking for, but obviously, sometimes in education, unfortunately, the resources are what get put to the side. One of the things that I kind of tasked Dr. Williams with when she came in was, and she's already changed some of those plans, but is to go through all of our subjects and try and realign these. We were given a gift with ESSER 3 and 20% learning loss to do it right. So we just want to start this year with having an opportunity to do it right K through 12 for all of our kids.
So is that where that would come out of?
So,
We're
so that
required-
checks that box, right?
Correct.
Of, hey,
It's not out of our.
It's already been approved.
but I mean, we have to check that box in order to get the remainder of the ESSER funds. Because we have to say, hey, this is where we're dedicating funds towards learning loss.
So we had to do that at the beginning of the year.
Right, and this is part of that,
We
right?
gave them that plan.
Perfect.
Obviously, at the time, we did not know the exact expenses of everything, but it was approved, and some things have been more expensive, some have been cheaper. This is more expensive than we put down, but at the same time, our tutoring hasn't spent all of our 20%, so we're still well within.
Cool.
I mean,
And we
yeah.
don't have to touch our budget.
Correct.
All right. Okay, then I need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So, and I'll second his
Motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, on to discussion topics. So we're gonna talk about the CSIP 6 update.
Yes, and I just wanted to share this little bit of information. I don't necessarily have to go through, sorry, I always forget to turn that button on. Don't necessarily have to go through every single slide. I just wanted to put some things up there. We have been having a lot of conversation around MSIP 6. I think it's going on in every school district around the state as more information is coming out about those standards and as we're getting closer to that. We don't know who's going to be in the first 3 years of going through that MSIP 6 evaluation, but we know it's coming up next year, and they're supposed to notify schools sometime between May and July. So we just kind of wanted to start bringing this conversation. We are having conversations as a district leadership team about how would we gather progress information and how would we move forward with this. So the differences are just right here, and the key changes when you look at that. Previously, the annual performance report was based on 100% of the achievement. Now it is based on 70% performance and 30% that continuous improvement. So that makes our CSIP very important. It makes some of the different things that we do important that we're going to have to look at. How do we gather information on that? For instance, in kindergarten, we now have a kindergarten readiness screener that our students have to take within the first 4 weeks of school, 4 to 6 weeks. And then they're going to start talking about how do we track progress to helping those kids be high school ready? How do we help those kids be college and career ready? And so where are those guide points going to be all along the path? And that's just one example of what that continuous improvement will look like. They are changing to a continuous MPI so that we can start tracking progress a little bit more easily for students. In the past, they would have these big cut scores, and so a student may work really hard and they would just get below basic, and they may have grown 200 points, but they're still just below basic. Now there's going to be a scale along that route, so you can kind of see how far that they've moved, and you get credit for that. Before it was just if they're below basic, they're below basic, and it doesn't matter how much they grew. Now they're going to give us growth points for that. So that's going to be a positive thing. With our student group denominator, it's going to be direct certification. So we are really going to start pushing out and trying to make sure that everyone is really filling out those free and reduced lunch forms, not only for this reason, but for some of our grants and other things that we're eligible for based on that data. With some changes in food coming up, we want to make sure that's out there. And like I said, most of it's going back to continuous improvement standards. We are going to have to report on equity, looking to make sure that we are giving everyone a fair chance and opportunity to learn. And the big difference was the high school assessment. That's why we talked about with the Algebra 1, that now that's going to be at 8th grade. If 8th grade takes it, that's when it's awarded. It's not held. And like I said, it's going to be this year is supposed to be a pilot, and then there's supposed to be a 3-year phase-in. We aren't sure where we are in that 3 years yet. So those are the key differences. I did put some other things in there for you just to kind of, as your information, what's out there in the draft form, but just kind of letting you know.
Taking a look at MSBA policy updates, you guys can see a list there. Obviously, we'd ask, right now this is just for review, so look over it and make sure there's no objections to us adopting any of these. These obviously came from MSBA. We'll ask at a later time that we actually adopt them. I don't want to say the most important because every policy is important, but one that does stand out is the EBBC and JGGA, which is in relation to breastfeeding within the school. There's just some new rules we have to play by and make sure that we have things for that to be an option to our staff members. That does have to be adopted by July 1st, so we don't really get a choice on that one. There's obviously some things we're going to have to readjust or move around or maybe create within buildings, so we've been looking at this since the beginning of the year, but just wanted to keep in your to your attention, I guess. Looking at salary schedule, this morning actually I sat in a webinar with the state, and they reiterated right now to make sure if you had any intentions on adopting your salary schedule at this time to wait. That was the advice from us. I told you guys last month that that's kind of where we're sitting with things right now, because it keeps changing. Obviously the governor said that he wanted to make it a priority to raise the teacher minimum to $38,000 in the state. He was willing to fund 70% of that for 1 year. After that, it was up in the air if it would be even funded at that 70%. That did not even make it to our legislators. It made it to the budget committee, and they shot it down immediately. Took that entire portion of the governor's budget out, as well as talked about re-adding career ladder, which went away, 10 years maybe, I don't know. It went away a while back. Then today, listening to Desi discuss it, they said, just hold the phone because several senators have reached out that they're going to re-add the $38,000. So we have no idea where that stands. One scenario that they said the lobbyists for education are fighting for are to get them to re-add the $38,000, and they said there's actually some senators that are listening and funding it at 100%. And then the schools would be responsible for the benefits portion, which honestly that's reasonable. That's probably the most reasonable scenario that's been thrown out, but I don't know if that's them being optimistic or if that's a realistic addition. They went through some different scenarios with different school districts. Obviously, we are in a pretty good spot. Not a great spot, but in a manageable spot in St. James schools if this went through. because the amount of salary schedule it affects is very minimal to us, because we're fortunate in what we are able to pay our people. But it would be a huge financial burden to the district. And it's kind of that the game we're playing, and they said right now the most important thing from their point of view is just, they said it repeatedly, be transparent with your Board of Education, be transparent with your staff. Because reality is, they've already said there would be a waiver to waive yourself out of this. If you say, hey, this is gonna bankrupt my school, but at the same time, they're saying, I dare you to be the school that doesn't do it. You know, so, it's out there, we'll see where it goes. Good things for us. We are not going to have a lot of time to do this, so I'm still working on scenarios. We've got things put into place. So once we find out, you can see on the first document that's on there, we'll start with classified. So we currently pay our classified $11.60 an hour. Within the next 3 years, we have to pay our classified $15 an hour because that's minimum wage. We are technically exempt from that as a school, but in the same token, we can't hire people right now. So it's kind of like the governor's dare you not to do it. Okay, we're not legally have to, but who's going to work for us if we don't pay you the minimum wage? Plus, our people deserve it. So the things we're looking at here, obviously, the increased our budgets on the right side, the amount of raise we give our people. I'll be honest with you guys, where I'm at right now, I want to be very aggressive right now while we do have a surplus of money, because I'm afraid as years continue on that they know we have this surplus and they're going to quit. They're going to cut budgets in other means. If we've got to get there right now, I'm leaning towards the aggressive point on it. So if things do get tight down the road, then we can, okay, well, we only have to give 50 cents this year, but we've got to put ourselves in a situation within the next 3 years where we're at $15 an hour. You can see the impact to the district on every one of those steps of what it would make with our current staffing. Certificated, we're looking at all kinds of scenarios there. Step plus 500 has been, to what I have been told, what the customary here in St. James has always been. You can see the financial impact would be $239,000 with that. Step plus 1,000 would be $313,000. In order for St. James Schools to get every employee to the governor's requirement of $38,000, we'd have to get a little creative on there. It'd be $1,000 on the base, step plus 1,200 on 2 steps in order to get those 2 steps to the $38,000. So the impact on that would be $313,000. The most equitable, just to be honest, the most equitable and fair to your employees is the $1,200, because then you can say everyone is getting the same amount of raise, but you can also see that's the biggest economic impact to the district on financially what it would cost us. So still waving things through the air. We're looking at every scenario of financially where that puts us down the road. As right now, it's, you know, the 500 is what we have customarily done, so we've budgeted for that in the past. But it's looking like we'll have to be more aggressive this year.
When the state says they're going to fund this, what does that mean? Like, we submit them a spreadsheet that says, hey, this is what it would have cost us had you not done this?
Correct. So, well, no. So, if it goes through the way that it was originally written, so that 70% actually comes from your lottery money, is where they're pulling
Right.
the 70%. So what we would have to do within the waiver that we sign, yes, we would have to say how many steps it took us to get to the 38,000.
Okay.
Where it really benefits us, I was looking at some schools, they're gonna not be able to treat their employees equitably, I guess. Like their steps 1 through, the school we looked at today, 1 through 10, you're at $38,000.
Yeah.
So you could be a first-year teacher making what a 10-year teacher was making. Guess what? You're gonna go 10 years before you get a raise. If they're not gonna go bankrupt, it's the only
Yeah,
way
your
they can do
K
it.
through 8,
Yeah.
K through 8 districts are going to.
Which fits into the fact, right now, our legislator, in my opinion, this is only opinion-based, we're looking at consolidation of Missouri schools.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
It's just, it is what it is. If you look at every legislation going through, that's kind of where it's pointed. But to us, what we would do, we are more fortunate in the amount of our steps that don't get to 38,000, so we would just submit that amount, total amount to them, and then if we sign the waiver, and then they would reimburse us 70% of what that cost us. So where we're lucky, it's not going to impact us hugely and make a 15-year teacher irate that a first-year teacher's making the same amount. We're not in that scenario, but we're in the scenario where it's such few amount of steps that 70% is literally just going to be like a couple grand.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a couple grand we're going to get back to make a $300,000 investment. So it's scary, but it is what it is. Did that answer your question?
It did. I have other questions, but I think you've provided the information prior, and so I feel dumb for asking them. What I'm trying to think about is the increase in taxes, real estate taxes and everything. Do we have that information? I believe we do, as far as what that increased our budget.
So that's where we start. That is where we start in making the budget.
Right.
We look at all those numbers. There was a significant increase, obviously. So
There's a significant increase in our cost of doing business.
everything, like as I'm in the process of building the budget right now, we had to add a 20% increase like into food costs next year, just to stay up with the current inflation rate. So there is an increase. These are big numbers, but like I said, it's normal for us to see a $300,000 increase every year. You have people retire, you have people, so that is normal. So it is a big shot. Where I get nervous because perceptionally it looks bad, but if things were close to getting bad, we could give the big raise now and then have to freeze in a year or two. And that's kind of what I've heard other schools saying they're doing, and nobody wants to hear that because nobody wants to see that 1 year off. But if we are forced to make a move for legislation purposes, then you got to do what you got to do. So we would just have to be honest with our people and say, hey, you're going to get a big raise this year, but it's because we know probably in 2 years we ain't going to be able to afford to do it for a year, to kind of play that catch-up game. So that's kind of where we are sitting with things right now.
Thank you.
All right.
Or we
Good.
could find other sources of income as
Yeah.
well along the way.
That'd be nice. All right, on to retaining teachers. So this is something that I had put on for the board docs, and this is kind of just a discussion for us as board members. Basically, because nowadays you get online, you get on Facebook, you hear the news that basically there's teacher shortages everywhere. And so ideally, I mean, we don't want to lose anybody, but every year we seem to lose a few here and there. And I just thought it might be something to discuss amongst board members. I know Dr. Williams is working on some possible grant money that could help us maybe over the summertime, but obviously we don't know how that's going to go. So that's just one of those things that we don't know. But I mean, there's a lot of teacher burnout, whether it be apathy from kids. I think COVID learning has really hurt. All of a sudden, kids have just been passed through with COVID, and now they don't think they have to do anything anymore. So, but I mean, our job as board members is we're trying to direct Mr. Webster and Dr. Williams in the right direction, and I know they're trying to get teachers and administrators and everybody on the same bandwagon. But I feel like we need to discuss a little bit about it, just to talk about what we're doing and to say we appreciate all that all of you are doing, and I know it's not the most fun time to be in education. So,
Do we have like some trainings that are repetitive that we've done multiple years in a row that we could probably do in-house at this point, like CKH or anything like that? How much do we spend a year on that?
Currently, the numbers that I looked at for next year's bid, this year's I don't remember right off top hand, but I know for next year it was $68,000 is what the bid is.
Because I know there's probably teachers that have been here since it started that are probably, I mean, I'm not saying we stop practicing those things, but we quit paying them for the training and just kind of do it in-house. I mean, to throw $70,000 pretty much into that teacher raise, I mean, that would be a big help for our district, I feel like. And still practice it and train in-house, but not actually pay them to come do it.
Definitely. So that's something we're actually, every year we go through a PD survey. I know Dr. Williams has that ready right now. We haven't sent it out yet. How we come up with the PD survey is she sits down with the PD committee, which is teachers from each building, and they find out what teacher needs are, what teachers are interested in learning the next day or year, or professionally learning in. And that's kind of where we go from there. Where the PD budget lies, so with trainings such as CKH or anything, we're required by the government to spend 1% of our budget on that. So if we do get rid of one thing, we've got to add something else to get to that. So you're still required to spend 1% of your budget either way. So, but yeah, we are in the process. I think all the buildings have been discussing, and they've got their building plans on where they're going. And I think we do a good job at trying to revisit where we're going professionally with our staff.
We were approved for that grant, correct? For the grant money, it's just a matter of,
Yes.
I mean, obviously, we didn't have the time. I believe we gave you guys till next school year to kind of present a plan to us for retention and recruiting, right?
We were approved for the teacher retention grant as well as the Grow Your Own grant, and the Grow Your Own grant is off and running, and so it really is the teacher retention grant. So we sat down and met with a group of representatives from each building, the teachers coming through, and some of the things that they really talked about at that team was, honestly, a lot of it wasn't necessarily things that we could put money toward. Recognition. They wanted teacher voice, and so we've been trying to really increase that. More mentoring, training for the mentors as well as for the mentees to really build our program, because they felt like that was something that would be really good to start off strong and give teachers that support. Some social emotional types of things is what they felt like they need. That's the piece that we're really kind of digging into, because there are so many different ways that you can go with social emotional training. And so I actually have a meeting set up with the counselors for next week for us to sit down and kind of talk through what's the best use of that to enable to move forward. I sat down with teachers last month and had listening days, and I was in the building before school until after school. Anyone could stop by. Mr. Webster and I have met with every building to give teachers the opportunity, and we're really looking at those surveys, trying to figure out how do we help retain our teachers, how do we give them the support that they need. Unfortunately, with $68,000 over 3 years, that's not something you can really put towards salaries. It would,
Well,
I don't know, a
and-
hamburger or something for, so we can do those things without having to use that grant money for that.
And I appreciate that. So versus using our in-house counselors, could we take that 68,000 and bring in maybe somebody, even an outside counselor, whether it's a school counselor or even a professional psychologist, and allow that training or allow that person to be here so many hours per week? Is there something like that, if that's what's truly important? Like, can we bring people from the outside in?
We can look at different options. So I'm going to sit down with them next week, and we're going to look at, there's a lot of different curriculums, there's a lot of different trainings, there's a lot of different things that can come in. So what is it that we feel like we need? Because our counselors are already sitting down with our kids
Right.
and having those conversations, so they really have a good pulse on what is that social emotional need for our kids. And so I feel like we have to start there with that conversation and let them share what they know, and make sure that whatever we decide to do, it really is tailored to our students' needs and our teachers' needs to support them.
It's interesting to hear you talk, because it's not just at the school level. That is a workplace thing. That is every workplace in the United States right now is having, obviously not the same exact issues because it's a different environment, but very similar when you read the statistics, what's happening outside of our, in the work world, whatever you want to call it.
So to kind of just go off of what John just said with the whole workforce, first I would like to thank you guys as 7 people sitting there that care enough about, the teachers and people to ask this question, because that really does show a lot that you care that much. But I agree with so much with what you just said. A lot of it is, in education, you deal so much with people. It is a people business. And I think you guys can tell even by watching the news right now how people react on airplanes and how people act in grocery stores. Well, when all you do is deal with people, what we've seen, what I think the teachers would back me on this and seeing is people are just not as pleasant as they were a couple years ago right now, which I get. I know sometimes I just wake up grumpy in the morning. It's just where we're at. People are tired. People are just, they need a break. And I don't think that's exclusive to education. I think that's everybody right now. I did, when I saw you guys wanted to add this, just to kind of add some perspective to things, I did some homework. Some of the things I looked at is, because obviously I can't speak for all of our staff members. We can do things like she formed a committee and said, hey, tell us what you want. You know, none of those three things, of course they want money, but they saw it. They saw how much we got with that grant, and they said, okay, what can we realistically get? So I wanted to kind of see, just in comparison with the area of where we sat. So this year, we've had 3 staff members retire to this point in the year. We've had an additional 5 that are leaving the district. We've had, at the high school, we've had 3 leaving, 1 retire. At the middle school, we've had 0 leave, 1 retire. And then at the elementary, we've had 2 leave and then 2 retire. So I was just curious where we sat with other neighboring districts. I called Rolla. I asked him, can you give me your best guess on how many certified staff members you have? He said they're around 300, so they're exactly double our size. They've had 25 staff members leave. They still have 12 open positions in which they're struggling to get applicants for, and 13 of those 25 are retirees. So if you put that into proportion to the size of our district, that's 12, 6, and 7 at each building. I called Cuba, next school down on 44. They've got 5 high school openings, 3 middle school openings, 2 elementary, and 2 administrator openings. When you look at that, I do think, and it's because we have, in my opinion, we have people like you guys that sit and ask these questions and try and show that we care about our staff. And we've got people like these guys sitting in here that truly care about people. I'm proud to say, when you look at both sides of I-44 and us, people want to be here over, some of those other places. Rolla's got an edge on us. They can pay you more money. Okay, Cuba's got the same local traditions that we have, but we opened up some positions in the elementary, and I logged on there this morning and I actually emailed Dan and I said, dude, the elementary can still bring it because there are people that still want to be elementary teachers. Now, we opened some high school jobs and there's not as many, but that's even in the good times in education, that's pretty normal. You're going to see more elementary educators out there, but we're starting to see it and we're starting to feel it in some positions and some stuff, but we are fortunate to kind of be where we are. I just wanted to say that a little bit.
So going back to you saying people are tired, people are worn down, what does our schedule look like? Say we added 10 or 15 minutes a day. Could we gain our teachers like 3 extra days off that aren't PD, just some free days off, and maybe even add them in as snow days or something for a buffer? Because the last few winters we've used all ours.
So you kind of mean like throughout the school year?
Throughout, like every day we go 10 minutes longer. What would
Okay.
that gain us throughout the whole year?
So I can, so with the elementary this year, we actually bumped it 10 minutes. So I can kind of speak to that, not 100% accurately, but I can give you a good guess just because I remember looking through that with the calendar. If we were to add 10 minutes to every single building throughout the day, it would take us at 5 days a week, 4 weeks in a month, it would take us about 3.5 months to equal a day. So within the school year, we could, 10 minutes on a day would get you 1 or 2 or 3 days that you could add. The good thing about how the calendar has to be made now, I guess good thing over in the past, how it had to be, it used to be days. Now it's just strictly hours. So as long as you meet the 1,080, you're good. We always build in more because we build in the maximum amount for snow days. That way, whether we miss 1 day for snow or 50 days for snow,
unless we deem, hey, we were not academically able to get done with our children what we need to get done for them, we are not obligated by the state to ever add days, if that makes sense. So we could get in a scenario where we just said, hey, we haven't, if we missed a month and a half of school, we could say, hey, we just need a month and a half left, so we've got to extend days, but we wouldn't ever be obligated to add them. So, I mean, that's something we could look at. You'd have to keep in mind looking at just what's best overall for education. If you'd have to strategically place those days, I'd think. But
We don't have any days off in April, right?
yeah.
You can do one day in April.
Yeah, we will have Good Friday moving forward, so that was something I was happy that people supported. Yeah,
What's
go
our
ahead.
current current contract days? How many days do teachers, are they required to work in a year?
Oh, so we're in session 172 plus the 5 days at the beginning of the year, and then we have 3 PDs.
So 181 days
Yeah.
is what we require a teacher to
Mhm.
work.
That'd be a contracted day.
And one of the things I just want to mention as we talk about minutes and adding minutes is that at some grade levels, 10 or 15 minutes doesn't seem like a lot, but for some of our little ones, adding 10 to 15 minutes a day, it is a lot of stamina that we're expecting from some young kids. And so I think as you look at that, we have to balance the needs of our students as well as the needs of our teachers.
Okay, everybody good? Okay. We'll move on to action topics. I need a motion to approve the math resource proposal. Got a motion, need a second? Second from Larry. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Okay, superintendent's report.
Do you want to cheer? Yes, I am internally. Just checking.
Did you come? Did I make sure that got through?
Yes.
Did I go too fast? I'm sorry.
That is very important to my life, so yes, that is one of the reasons I'm here, for sure.
Um,
I'm texting everyone. I'm texting everyone, just so you know.
So, obviously, as we've been starting kind of superintendent's report, always with COVID update, things are good right now. We've progressed in moving things forward. As we have the last couple months I've spoken with you, we did have, I guess, a bump compared to the 2 weeks in a row that we had 0 cases reported. Last week, district-wide, I think we had 2 cases. But at the same time, we're in a much better place and don't need to spend a lot of time talking about it. CSIP, I talked to you guys a little bit last month about our annual CSIP review, and I told the administrators when it was. But we are going to put that on a little bit of hold right now. With MSIP 6 coming out, they've had a lot of discussion about how your CSIP has to align to MSIP 6. So right now, before we make any changes to that, we want to make sure that the changes we're going to make are adequate for the new DESI rules that they're passing out. So we're just going to kind of hang off for a little while and make sure till we get everything that we need to know about MSIP 6, and then we'll kind of go from there. Nutrition report, you're going to see probably, my game plan right now is next week we're going to start trying to push this out to community members. Because we are about 99% sure there's still a possibility they come back out with some huge amount of funding and say we're here to save the day, but I feel very confident in being able to tell our community next year our families will be expected to pay for meals again because the free meals are going away. So it would be back to either people need to fill out the forms and they could get free and reduced forms. So I feel that the quickest we can get our people that information, the better. Facilities report, we've been focusing a lot on spring cleaning within the district. There are just some random, if you've been behind the shops, kind of by the bus route, there's been a lot of just things that have collected within the years. We've been getting rid of some of that stuff. Around the elementary on the other side, there's just throughout the years, there's basketball goals and things that have been placed there. We're getting rid of those. Within the middle school, I know Karen's asked for a couple things to possibly be cleaned up. Hopefully we can get those poles in her parking lot, something done with those sooner than later. But I'm not gonna lie, I hate clutter, and there's clutter around here, so we're decluttering a little bit. technology report. We've added badge access to this building, to the administration building, and we've added a couple to the middle school. So now I believe, Karen, all of your exterior doors, correct, are now badge access. The awesome thing is I talked with Josh and said, hey, can you get us a plan together to make that happen? When he called the company, we actually had a credit with them, so we were able to get all of those at no cost to the district. So that was pretty exciting. One of the things that we were able to do this year with being able to sell our old iPads and get new ones is financially, since we didn't have to dump all that money in our lease payment, we were able to go ahead and update some PCs, so the actual desktops that we still have within the district. So those have been received, and they're starting to put together a plan of getting those formatted and getting those out. So by next school year, we'll have those ready to go. We had some issues with some things going on at the firehouse, not necessarily school related even, just maybe people hanging out or people doing stuff after hours. So we've put some cameras up over there to just hopefully be a deterrent for people to damage things from down the road. Activities report, you can see in there that Coach Shockley has listed all the activities for this month that you guys might find interest of. Insurance. The next thing I want to talk to you guys was about insurance. This would typically be the month in which we would ask for your approval on insurance. Our insurance, Schraper Insurance, he was not able to come down and sit and talk with us until Monday of this week. We were currently sitting at 150%, which means we've spent 150% more than we've paid in within our premiums, which usually asks for a pretty good size upgrade in what you're going to pay the following year. Within that, luckily, I think the guy does work pretty hard for us, and what historically we have seen, we did not see as big of a guesstimated increase. If we were to stay with Anthem, we were expecting a 9.90 increase, so a 9% increase, almost a 10% increase. He did provide us with two other options of insurance that we could go with. One of those was Cigna, which I'd not heard of. They came in super low with us at 6%. The flaw with Cigna that I see when talking with him is we would be cheaper on the upfront side, but our employees would pay the price for that when they actually went to the doctor. So I'm not really interested in that. At this time, I would have to be kind of overridden by you guys to move that direction. The other people that offered us a bid were United Healthcare. United Healthcare came in at just under 15% increase. United Healthcare is a good insurance company that, at best I can tell, their rates and everything would be very similar to what we have with Anthem, but obviously at 15% that would put us higher. So I was scrambling Monday at 5 p.m. when he left the office thinking, how am I going to get this ready for you guys? And luckily he gave me an out, because Tuesday he called and they were able to get a couple other schools to go with Anthem, which within that they were able to use us as leverage. So he has since then dropped our rate, or he has not, but Anthem has said that they would drop our rate from a 9.9% increase to it was like a 7.1 or 7.2% increase. So overall within that would be some money savings. I did not feel confident that from Tuesday to this point in the week that I was able to tell you financially how big of an impact that was to the district, and be able to tell you I felt comfortable with us paying that 7% increase or not paying that 7% increase. Sorry, I couldn't make that many hundreds of thousands of dollar decision in less than 24 hours. So I don't have anything for you to approve. And speaking with him, he told me it would be better if once we could do this, maybe if we could hold some sort of a Zoom meeting where he could get on there with us. He said that way your people can just stay at their house. It'll literally be the only thing that we have on the agenda. So between now and next month, I might ask you guys for a special board meeting just so we can approve that. The important reason of that is because we need to get the insurance people here so they can talk to our employees. But I am I do apologize for possibly making you have an additional meeting, but I just couldn't make that type of decision in less than 24 hours. So, you want to talk, I see it.
We obviously can't make it an action topic now, but just so I'm understanding, your best rate is a 6% increase from Cigna.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have it spread out in an Excel or any type of spreadsheet showing what it's going to do to our employees if we went
Correct.
with Cigna.
And that's why, I just wasn't able to get that done.
Okay, and that's why you weren't comfortable, because honestly, the 1% between the two doesn't bother me if it's truly going to be that big of a difference for our employees.
I would have felt confident in having you guys vote to keep us with Anthem. Where I did not feel confident is if, looking at the fact of if we could pick up that financial amount as the district, or if we would have to ask our people to pick that up.
Gotcha. Okay.
That's where
that
because I
makes
was not able to look at those numbers and tie those in with what kind of impact that is to our budget.
got it.
Because now they pay like, isn't it like $155 or something?
So
On
right-
top of what we pay? Depends
So,
on which
yeah,
plan.
so
but-
right now, the district currently covers the lowest, so if you're the lowest option, so the 681.24, that's what we currently cover of the employee. There's another option at 787 if they want to go with that, or if they want to go with the 814 option, which is kind of the platinum package, I guess you'd say. Correct. With next year's, he hadn't even sent me the proposals for the 7%, but at the 9%, the option historically, the 680 that we paid, it would be 748 next year. So you're looking at like an $80 increase, but to sit and look at every single employee for the $80, I just didn't have time to do that. Sorry.
I understand that better.
Okay. Financial report. You guys can take a look right there. Obviously, very consistent with the entire year. Revenues are up. We're making more money than projected at the beginning of the year. There's obviously many reasons for that. Many grants are out there right now. Spending is up as well. You can see that we closed the month. I mean, people like to spend money on every facet. So we were able to close out the month at 72.51% of our budget, which obviously we're still doing well and staying healthy within the budget that we have approved.
So, as always, we start with our enrollment and where we are currently. So you can see we 91.2% attendance rate overall. As we look at some good things going on in the district, you know, one of the things I put up there was our math teachers, and as you can see, they've been very invested in the process, and so I just really appreciate how much time and how much effort they put into really helping us make the right decision for our students. The other thing I wanted to do is make sure just to commend Ms. Schultz at the high school. We have an education symposium coming up on April 20th where we have 11 schools coming in to meet with our students who may want to become educators in the future, and we are going to open that up to any parents who also want to come and attend and find out some information, or substitutes as well, and that has gone out across the region as well to invite other schools. And so we're very excited about that event coming up. And she's worked very hard to get that arranged for everyone. We've already talked about the math program. Our district ELA team met to discuss some of the needs that they have. When we had our listening days, we heard a lot about how curriculum was a need for them. And so we met to kind of discuss what is it that they were really needing, what would that look like. We have our state assessment window planned next week. We have some of our first groups starting to take the MAP test, and letters have gone out to our virtual students because they have to come in to the district to take those assessments. For our supplemental grant, we are making some adjustments to continue our prevention efforts with our supplemental grant, which is for mitigation of COVID. And just looking at, we had a lot of funding in our staffing and personnel, and with some of the changes as far as how many people are testing positive at this time, we're going to be able to change some of that percentage to buy some other products that are needed. Our teacher retention grant, we have spent some of the funds on teacher incentives, and we're looking at requests. Some people have come up with particular requests that only impact their own classroom, and they've asked for some of that, as well as some SEL things. We have also applied for the American Rescue Plan grant, which is for our homeless children and youth, and that will provide $16,000 to the district for our students in need. And then our SLP, OT, and PT contracts are currently being reviewed so that our students have services for next year. So we're in the process of doing a lot of work in that area as well. You can see at the elementary school, they are very busy continuing to learn, getting ready for MAP testing in our upper levels, and just kind of doing lots of great things as they look. They're creating their own poetry books and learning to think about animals and insects. So there's lots of great things going on over at Lucy. The Easter egg hunt is coming up on April 15th, so hopefully that doesn't get rained out for our little ones. Yeah. And then there have some great things going on in the elementary group. For Beta, had their last whole group meeting on April 5th, and they are doing some online tests for nationals, which we hope they are able to do well on that. At the middle school, they're gearing up for MAP testing in May, starting that first week out, and everybody's kind of looking at how do we get prepared and do those last pushes to get their content in. ICU, you can see they've really completed 6,017 missing assignments. We have Honor Society applications have been submitted, and they were due April 11th. Do we know, Ms. Lepper, how many they ended up with?
38.
38 applications, so that's pretty good news.
10% of our population, yeah.
And the teachers, 7th and 8th grade teachers, visited Melville School yesterday to look at their standards-based grading processes and just kind of gather some more information. And it gives you some upcoming events. And then at the high school, we have some great things going on. As you guys highlighted, the play came out, and it was really well received, I think. End of the year testing is coming up for end of course, so it's kind of, we're just hitting that state assessment window and everybody's getting ready for that. You can see that there are students of the month from this month, and that we did have some MOASP top 100 honorable mentions. Upcoming events, we have Special Olympics on April 19th, so we're excited that our kids get to participate in that, and then prom April 23rd. Some highlights.
MSBA news. Within MSBA news, they have formed a committee of Missouri business people to try and work through the teacher salaries here in Missouri. That is led by MSBA. They said that they don't, them and Dr. Van Dieven, they don't think it would be as well received by educators, because then it looks self-serving. So who better than to have sit on that committee than business people of Missouri, because they can firsthand show the importance of being well educated, because that's the kind of people they want to hire. So they were focusing on that committee that's being formed right now, as well as they wanted everybody to be reminded that if you have new board members, you're required to have 18 and a half hours of training within your first 12 months. So we do not have any new board members, so we should be good there. Next, you guys can see the graduation senior events. Just wanted that there for you for your knowledge, in case any of you wanted to be involved in any of that, as well as the prom date has been scheduled, and you can see that that'll be held in Rolla at the Signature Event Center. Just wanted to put that in everybody's ears as well.
I did see on the graduation schedule that it says the seating restrictions, that just because it's not big enough for,
Yeah, I
like,
believe,
bring your
to
close
my
family
understanding,
and
that's
not-
just what they've always had to do if it's held inside.
don't bring
just 'cause we can't.
40 of your closest
Yeah.
family members.
but
I just didn't know if that was a
Yeah.
COVID thing or just
no,
because we don't
that's,
have enough room.
that's just because we don't have enough room. That was always done that way, I guess I should say.
Make a motion to adjourn to closed session.
Second?
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, closed session.